Well, good evening once again. Day 212 of the Biden administration. There is mounting pressure to speed up the airlift to get people out of Afghanistan. As new reports indicate, the White House was warned about the disaster that would quickly unfold after the official U.S. withdrawal. Tomorrow, the president will speak to the nation again about these evacuations. As the administration tries to ramp up the mission, they still lack a firm count of the number of Americans in Afghanistan.
We don't have a precise number, and the reason is because we ask Americans to register with the U.S. government when they arrive in country, and we build a database. But lots of Americans don't deregister. So a number of people come, they sign up, and then they leave and never let us know they left. And so we can't know for certain exactly how many Americans are in country. We will get any American who wants to get to the airport and who we get in contact with who says, I want to get out and get on a plane, we will make that happen. This is a risky operation. We right now have established contact with the Taliban to allow for the safe passage of people to the airport, and that is working at the moment. One of the contingencies we are very focused on, laser focused on, is the potential for a terrorist attack by a group like ISIS-K, which of course is a sworn enemy of the Taliban.
So that's the president's national security advisor. That's a heck of a claim he just made, that if you're an American and want to get out of there, they'll get you out of there. Pentagon says the military can airlift 5,000 to 9,000 people a day currently out of Kabul. So far, the U.S. has airlifted about 7,000 people out of Afghanistan, not all of them American, which, by the way, has been a Herculean effort by the U.S. Air Force, the 82nd Airborne, the Marines who are there, and others. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan just referred to one of the biggest obstacles to evacuations, Taliban fighters and their armed checkpoints surrounding the airport. Today, the Pentagon acknowledged the tense conditions on the ground, confirming that jet fighters indeed flew over Kabul to provide security for the some 5,000 troops overseeing the evacuations.
F-18s from the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group flew armed Overwatch flights. The ability to provide close air support is something that needs to be immediate if a condition on the ground ever required that.
Amid all of this, we are learning that there were warnings about a rapid withdrawal from Afghanistan. NBC News confirming a Wall Street Journal report that last month 24 diplomats at the U.S. Embassy Kabul warned Secretary of State Blinken about the possibility of a Taliban takeover and indeed urged immediate evacuations. The Wall Street Journal and other media outlets have reported that officials also advised the president against a full drawdown of troops. Journal reporting it this way: the president's top generals urged Mr. Biden to keep a force of about 2,500 troops while seeking a peace agreement between warring Afghan factions to maintain stability. The president was asked about that during his interview with ABC News.
Your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
They didn't tell you that they wanted troops to stay?
No, not in terms of whether we were going to get out in a time frame, all troops. They didn't argue against that.
So no one told your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that.
No one said that to me that I can recall. There is no good time to leave Afghanistan. Getting out would be messy no matter when it occurred.
Tomorrow, the House will get a briefing from Secretary of State Blinken, Secretary of Defense Austin, Joint Chiefs Chairman Milley. And Admiral, I'd like to begin with you, along with this quote from the Washington Post. Several people said Thursday they had received confusing signals from the United States about how exactly they were supposed to leave, citing emails from the State Department urging them to go to the airport, only to find there was no one to receive them or to answer their questions on how to board flights. A 39-year-old librarian, a dual U.S. Afghan citizen who came with his wife and 2 children after receiving an email invitation from the State Department, said he was whipped by a Taliban fighter. Admiral, I don't know much, but I do know we got to do a better job. How would you assess the mission, and is there a fix, a way to make this better and smoother at this point, starting tomorrow morning?
Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet here, Brian. As you well know, you've been in many crisis situations over the years. The U.S. military has control of the interior perimeter of Kabul International Airport. That's a good thing. We can get flights in and out of there. We want to get people out of the airport. The problem is not getting people out of the airport at this point. It's getting people into the airport, which is to say the Taliban controlled the rest of the country. And as a result of that, we are in the unfortunate circumstance of, I hate to say these words, relying on the Taliban to allow people to come into the airport. That's why you see my friend Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, working through a lot of challenges, saying the Taliban have said they will provide safe passage. Unfortunately, many reports indicate that's not correct, including what you just read from the Washington Post. So what can we do? We need to put pressure on the Taliban where we can. We've given up a lot of leverage since we've taken all our combat troops out of the country. So our leverage at this point is moral. It is economic. It is perhaps to offer some carrots. If you let people go, we will make things easier in terms of recognition. But we have a very weak hand of cards at this point. And unfortunately, we're going to have to hope, and hope is not a good strategy, but we're going to have to hope the Taliban will let people into the airport. Once they're in the airport, yes, the U.S. military will get them out. The problem is getting them in.
Shannon, I think our reporting is somewhat duty-bound on a couple of fronts. Number one, this reporting on the warnings Biden received, I think that should be coupled with his assertion that early evacuations would have triggered great interest, perhaps, and at worst, panic. And I think on the botched evacuation, it is fair to point out that the leadership structure of Afghanistan is gone. President left town to go who knows where. Having established that, talk about this dynamic right now as moving a target as it is within the West Wing.
And the big criticism that the president is under is not necessarily that we got out. Of course, there are people who will criticize that Biden withdrew troops, period. They argue we should have stayed there. There's that line of criticism, but the one that the president is really taking the heavy fire for, particularly from his allies, is how we got out. And that's this issue of helping evacuate not only the Americans, but as you mentioned, the Afghans who helped assist the government who are eligible for these special visas or who would like to apply for refugee status. The White House's response until this point, I would say, has really been focused on defending the decision to get out. And we heard that again from the president on Monday. We heard it again on Wednesday in that ABC News interview. So much focus on defending the decision and missing the element of criticism being lobbed at them about how. And we know the president is going to make remarks tomorrow. The public schedule indicates that those remarks are going to be focused on the process of trying to get these Afghans out. You know, we've heard a number of lines of rationale from the administration for why they hadn't gotten more out. You mentioned one of them, that they were afraid it could trigger a panic, a mass evacuation. There's also criticism from the Trump administration. Obviously, many of these people did not just start applying for a visa today. They have been applying for years. We've talked to people who've been applying for 10 years to try and get a visa out of this country. So this is an issue that stretches beyond administrations. So there is an extent that they inherited it, but it was not like the warning signs weren't there in April, May, and June and July. Yet there wasn't the big reaction necessary from this administration, like critics are saying. So I think that's one of the things to listen for tomorrow in the president's remarks is, does he defend himself and try and tackle this issue of getting these Afghan special visa applicants out? And how does he defend that? And is there anything new he's actually going to say we're going to do as a country to help them? You know, numbers of personnel or new systems being put in place. That seems to be what the White House needs to do at this point.